Hi everyone. This video is going to be just a kind of primer on a couple decks that we're going to try now that Theros is out. The past few videos you saw we're playing red, white, black, which clearly is, since Ravnica, Return to Ravnica has been spoiled, clearly been my favorite color combination. But there are a few iterations of the deck that we can look at, and they don't necessarily have to be red, white, and black. Earlier you saw a black-white video. You've seen the red, white, black ones, but we could also do blue, white, black, green, white, black, any combination. But I think the core colors right now are white and black. I think they offer very strong power creep level. They all have their pros and cons, and we're going to take a look at them in general and what each tertiary color offers. Actually, we're only going to look at 3 decks. We're going to look at white, black, red, white, black, and green, white, black. So Borzohv, and junk. That's all we're looking at today. And then, maybe I'm looking at them the wrong way, so maybe you can give your own input on the decks, what you think. These are just the starting points that I'm taking with the decks. And we'll go through it real quick. So first, let's look at black-white. So the benefit of black-white over the other color combinations with black-white is clearly, obviously, the mana base is less shaky because we're only playing 2 colors. We don't have to worry about all the come into play tap lands, even though we still do want to play a certain number of it. We don't have to worry too much about the double casting cost requirements of Desecration Demon or Lifebane Zombie, or still having double red to cast Anger of the God, whatever. Like, we don't have to worry about that shit. So we're all good. Those are the benefits of black-white, stability. And typically, black post-sideboard is going to give you everything to handle cards proactively in terms of like hand disruption and things of that nature, Lifebane Zombie. And white is going to be able to answer enchantments, hopefully, right? But the deck still doesn't take care of certain things. Like, I still think that there's some enchantments that are going to be hard to deal with, like Assemble the Legion, or some gods that hit the table, you don't have a way to just remove them off the board the way that red, white, black does. But still, the deck is very powerful. And in the slow matchups, in the mid-range matchups and control matchups, I think this deck really shines. Because it has a very strong creature base, and every creature it drops is a must answer. Like, your opponents have to answer this deck, or else they'll just lose. They just catch up too far. They fall too far behind. So without further ado, we'll look at it real quickly. We have 25 lands, and this deck is simple. We disrupt, hand disruption, removal early in the game, because our goal is to hit 4 mana, 5 mana, so we can drop demons, blood barons, alms beasts, things of that nature, win the game. Okay, and we have a nice little combo in there too. 25 lands because we on a pretty good percentage of hitting the 4-drop, the 4th land. We're going 4 Temple of Silences, 2 Guildgates, and 4 Godless Shrines. That's pretty much to maximize our dual color lands. 6 plains and then 9 swamps. 25 lands. All right. At the 1-drop, we only have main board 4 Thoughtseizes. The more I play with Thoughtseize in this format, the more I realize why the card is like $25 a single copy of Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize is amazing. It's perfect. Slow control decks need it. It's just, you can get rid of those problematic late game permanents, or you can just get rid of something early to let your aggressive opponent kind of lose tempo, and you can build some kind of board presence before they attack, etc., etc. So 4 Thoughtseizes. At the 2 mana, we have 2 Doom Blades, 3 Devour Flesh. I'm not sure how positive I feel about. I don't know. I think that's pretty good 2 mana removals set. Some decks are going to be too much, but I think that's fine. At 3 mana, we have 3 Heroes Downfall, which is added removal at instant speed, as well as taking care of Planeswalkers. We have 2 Underworld Connections, which helps us keep cards in our hand, draw cards. and we have 3 Read the Bones. And Read the Bones is a great card for this deck. Probably one of the best draw spells we've seen for black in a very long time. And I know you're thinking, you know, in between the Shocklands, Thoughtseize, Read the Bones, we're losing a lot of life. Underworld Connections, we're losing quite a bit of life. But the reason why that is okay is because we have quite a bit of life gain. So we'll go over that in a bit. At the 4-drop, and we still have 3 Sync Collectors, which is an early body, and at worst it's a 2/1 body. At best, it's 2/1 body, and you remove a removal spell, or a problematic Sphinx's Revelation, or whatever. You know, I mean, you remove something. Remember, you'll still need Duress if you want to deal with control decks, because there are other cards that you need to worry about, Planeswalkers, enchantments, things of that nature, that Sync Collectors do not hit. So, you know, remember, Sync Collector is not a substitute for Duress, okay? They work hand in hand, okay? At the 4-drop, we have 2 Alms Beast and 4 Desecration Demon, and we have 2 Whip of Erebos. So let me explain something here. Desecration Demon, if you've ever seen any of my videos since the beginning of time, I think the guy's crazy. Finally, Thragtus is gone. Finally, Lingering Souls is gone. Finally, Doom Traveler is gone. Now we have a chance for this card to shine. And it is a crazy card. 6 evasive guy for 4 mana. It doesn't really get better than that. We play 4 of him because he wins games. Especially if we give him lifelink with the whip, which we'll talk about in a bit. 2 Alms Beast kind of becomes Desecration Demon number 5 and 6 for us. You know, if you notice, creatures blocking or blocked by Alms Beast have lifelink. Really, we don't care. You know what I mean? Because we just want to prevent people from attacking into us and keeping an advantage. And we want to force people to lose their creatures by blocking a 6/6 on turn 5. You know what I mean? So that's why he's in there. And at the Whip of Erebos is another 4-drop. We're very 4-drop heavy, and we're pretty heavy on the 5-drop as well. A lot like red, white, black. So for the last 4-drop, we have Whip of Erebos. Gives our creatures lifelink, so that's really good. Really, you know, clearly that's with 6/6 guys, that's a big deal. That's a 12-point life swing. And nice ability here is the tapping ability. Return target creature card from the graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile it at the turn. So it gives you that little recursion option against control, against board sweepers. But this also works very good with Obzidot. Because an Obzidot is the end of our curve. We curve out at 5. Oh, actually, we curve out at 6. We got a Merciless Eviction here. That's just kind of a catch-all. But Obzidot is really our end of our curve. What happens here is, you know, Obzidot, you exile it at the end of turn, right? What this card does is, at the beginning of your next end step, what do you call it? If it would be on the battlefield, you exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. But here, what this Obzidot says is, at the beginning of your end step, you may exile it. So before this ability takes place, we've exiled the card. So he doesn't even exist in the game. So what we can do is, like, let's say Obzidot dies. Next turn, we cast the Whip. We get Obzidot. We exile Obzidot with his ability at end of turn. The Whip ability checks. It's no longer there. And then our following turn, Obzidot comes back in. And he becomes a permanent that stays there. So that's pretty awesome. There's a pseudo little small time combo there, right? That works pretty well, because it could be a 14-point life swing. 2 points, 2 life from Obzidot entering the battlefield. And then 5 points for the attack. 5 points of life, right? So that's the main board. It's pretty cool. It's pretty straightforward. Pretty basic. But it's very, very powerful. Okay. For the sideboard, we got 1 Pithing Needle. Deals with Planeswalkers. Deals with Aetherling. Deals for tapped out artifacts like Whip of Erebos. So that's why we want it there. 3 Lifebane Zombies, which deal with all green threats. Pokronos the World Eater. Blood Baron. Angel of Thune. You know, it deals with everything. Lifebane Zombie, great card to have. We have 3 High Priest of Penance, which is there solely for quick decks. White weenie decks, red decks with the, you know, burn. You know, he becomes a 2-for-1 very often against those types of aggressive decks, which is where we're a little slow against. You know, 3 Dark Betrayal for black decks. Desecration Demon. We sub out the Doomblades and maybe a Devour Flesh or Hero's Downfall, bring these in instead. 2 Duress for control, mostly. And 3 Glare of Heresy. Glare of Heresy is just there to get rid of problematic white cards. Elspeth Tyrell, Fiend Slayer Paladin, I guess, you know, whatever, Heliod, God of whatever, you know, those kinds of cards. And that is pretty much black-white mid-range, okay? So it's a pretty strong deck. I think if you're not used to playing the color combination, this is what you should start off with, and this is where you should build and see what works or how your meta develops. And, you know, if it gets too aggressive, maybe you want to go splash red. If it slows down and you want to be the aggressor, maybe you want to splash green so you can ramp. You know, you just go from there. Or maybe you just like the way it is now and you can just fix the sideboard or fix the main board to accommodate for those weaknesses in the deck. So that is an option. Deck 1. The next deck we'll look at is the deck that we always play, which is Borzohv, red, white, black, Dega. Same thing, basically. Only difference here is we've added... Okay, let's talk just basically about the benefit of adding red. Red gives us Anger of the Gods, Mizzium Mortars, Shock, Magma Jet, Chandra the Pyromaster. Also gives us Wear and Tear. Okay, that is what red gives us. And Boros Reckoner and War Leader's Helix. Okay, that's what red gives. It's going to depend on you how important putting red in is. Anger of the Gods and Magma Jet, great cards against aggressive decks. Really aggressive decks, sets them back a bit. Boros Reckoner is also good against them. War Leader's Helix could be good. Mizzium Mortars is great against Blood Baron. You know, Dreadbore is great against Planeswalkers, great against all creatures, all big green fatties. But remember, cards like Reckoner, War Leader's Helix, they're bad against Stormbreath Dragon. So if you expect a lot of decks running Stormbreath Dragon, this may not be the deck you want to play, even though you do have answers to it, because you got Thoughtseize, you got Mizzium Mortars, you got ways to deal with those kinds of cards. The deck also has access to all the black stuff that we like: Desecration Demon, Blood Baron of Vizkopa, Read the Bones, Duress. And it also has access to Rakdos Returns. And I think that's the whole point of these color combinations, is that you can just... It does the effects that black-white does, but it's just more powerful. I mean, Rakdos Returns is the best, man. That's the best, pretty much the best hand removal card you can play in the format, you know, aside from Thoughtseize, right? And we're already playing Thoughtseize. Also, so far, the way Theros is released, we only have 5 Scrylands. And I'm not saying you would play a full set of, you know, 15 Scrylands or 12 Scrylands if you could, but you do want to play a good number, especially a deck like this. So in the last standard format, that was what this deck had problem with. This is why people ran Faithless Looting, because they needed a way to filter, smooth out their land drops. But that was card disadvantage. This is no card advantage at all, but I mean, it filters your deck, and we have access to white-red and black-white. So of the 3 decks we're going to talk about, this is the only deck that has access to 2 sets of Scrylands. So that's one other benefit to look at. Obviously, the biggest con is the mana base. You know, you got to be very greedy if you're going to run Boros Reckoner and Demon. You know, there's just so many late game drops. You got to really decide what you want. How many Blood Barons? How many Stormbreath Dragons? How many Demons? How many Aurelias? How many Obsidots? You know, like you can look at my list. Like my creature base is kind of weird, right? But like I said, you get all that early game action. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the deal with red, white, black. We play this deck a lot, so if you want to know more info about this deck, just go ahead and watch one of our many videos on that red, white, black deck. We've been playing it a lot. We've been tweaking it a lot. You know, just one more aside before we go. I made a slight change here. I used to have 3 Shocks and then like some Obsidots and some other random shit. I dropped 1 Obsidot, and I dropped, I think, maybe 1 Duress. And instead what I did was I got rid of a Shock, and I added 3 Magma Jet. Just because I found myself sighting in very little cards against aggro decks when I still needed answers. And I found myself missing Magma Jet a lot. The Scry is just so powerful. And it's not only just for aggro matchups. You can use it in a couple other matchups as well. So That's what we're testing at. Okay. And the last deck we're going to talk about now is Junk Midrange. Now, what does black and white get the benefit out of this color, right? Like, the obvious thing is you get access to a greater number of fat creatures, and you get access to mana ramp. So that's the only reason why to add green. So what we're doing here is we've added, you know, this is 25 lands as well, but you're probably going to have to work around, figure out what you're going to do with the mana base and whatnot. But what we've done is added Scavenging Oozes, Sylvan Caryatid, and Boon Satyr. Those are the main green cards we've added. There's a couple of other things that are in there, you know, Putrefy, Selesnya Charm, Smiters, and of course Advent of the Wurm. And we'll talk about all of that shortly. But the main thing is these three cards, okay? Scavenging Ooze is how you kind of brick wall aggro and kind of slow them down a bit. Sylvan Caryatid is also another wall against aggro and also ramps you. So this gets you from 2 to 4 on the mana. Well, when you're looking at your mana. Great thing about him is 0/3, can block Ash Seller, can block a lot of stuff, has hexproof, and pretty much is a bird of paradise, as whatever mana you want. Next card is Boon Satyr. This card is awesome because you can flash him in as a blocker, 4/2 blocker, but better yet, as the game goes on, he becomes a pretty decent top deck as long as you have creatures on the board, because you can make your demons 10/8s, your smiters 8/6s, your blood barons 8/6s, and I think this is one of the biggest things about the card. You can enchant blood baron with it. So you know, that's one of the few cards I really like Rancor, that really can give blood baron that extra oomph and become a real threat. Because a 4/4 body is not much to. He's not much. Creatures can block him. Green creatures laugh at him, but not when he's 8/6, and not when he has pro white, pro black. So that's Boon Satyr, nice little card we want to try out there. And lastly, Advent of the Wurm, which is 4 for the 5/5 trample, have instant speed. That's awesome. You know, the rest of the cards you kind of just got to figure out. Like, you can see, it's a huge creature package. Like, unlike the other two versions of the deck, this deck runs 23 creatures, or 21 creatures, right? 3 Oozes, 4 Caryatids, 4 Boon Satyrs, 3 Smiters, 3 Demons, 4 Blood Barons, and then of course 4 Advent of the Wurm. So it's a huge creature base. Very small number of removal spells, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and no main board card draw. Okay, so that is what that is what this particular deck lacks, the additional card draw. You can always add cards to make it, to come up with that, to supplement your card loss, right? But why would you? I mean, when you're getting so much value out of the creatures that you're putting on the board. Mana base, I'm not really going to talk about too much. You can figure out your own mana base, tweak it to match whatever you want, or we'll see during testing. You can look at the you can look at our the deck list. There'll be deck lists provided, guys. Okay, and 3 Thoughtseizes. Okay, sideboard 4 Voice of Resurgence. He's still a great card, still underrated. 3 Zombies for, you know, same stuff. Underworld Connections to give you that card draw that you desperately need. Deadbridge Chant. This could be Primeval Bounty. This could be a few other cards, but I like Deadbridge Chant. Of Vraska, 2 Duress, and 3 Golgari Charm, which is a great addition because you get rid of all these pesky enchantments around. Save your creatures from board wipes. Against Weenie, you can give everyone -1/-1. It's a pseudo rat, and that is a nice thing about this deck. So basically, we've taken a look at 3 decks. None of these lists are optimal, although I will say the red-white black list is very, very developed, and the black-white list is just very strong on its own. So, you know, give your opinions on what you think are good changes to make for these decks. What kind of changes you'd like to see? Which deck you think is, which archetype you think is better in the long run, and let me know. And we'll see, and we'll test. We'll continue to test these decks.